ridiculous episode of QI with the absurd Holly Walsh, the preposterous Maisie Adam, and the ludicrous David Mitchell, and, no, but seriously, Alan Davis. And their buzzers are a right laugh. Holly goes. Maisie goes. David goes. And Alan goes. Extra point, who's that?
Jimmy Carr.
Is it a fox on heat?
No point in saying anything amusing. There's no one to hear it.
OK.
Jimmy Carr. That's a factual answer.
You get an extra point.
Thank you.
What is the funny thing about not having an audience?
That exact noise.
That noise, that silence.
That
I mean,
silence.
it's a sort of interesting experiment.
I mean, I've definitely done shows in the Edinburgh Fringe where this would count as quite a good audience.
Yes.
There's nearly 10 of them, and, you know, only some of them are part of the team. So.
I did the smallest audience I've ever played to. I did a gig once in which my mother-in-law turned up.
Oh, God.
Just your mother-in-law?
Just my mother-in-law.
No.
Yeah.
Sure that wasn't an intervention?
No, I'm not sure at all.
Sandy's still
Turned
calling it
into
a
one.
gig. Yeah.
What's the smallest gig you've ever played?
Oh, it was probably a preview just before Edinburgh, and my flatmate from uni, Hazel, turned up, and it was just her, and then these two guys had come to exit flyer my show, but obviously my audience was just Hazel.
Yeah.
And, well, Hazel went home with about 40 flyers for a show.
Yeah.
And both
Yeah.
the guys?
Yeah, yeah, and both guys. It was a great night for Hazel.
Yeah.
This does have the feel of, like, you know, when you used to put a play on for your mum and dad in the front room?
Yeah.
It does sort of feel a bit like that.
Only so really you have David Mitchell
Yeah.
and Sandi Toksvig and Alan Davis in it.
Yeah.
So there is canned laughter, but not for us. We never use it on the QI. But laugh tracks for TV shows were first created in 1950. And there was an American sound engineer called Charlie Douglas, and he invented what is called a laugh box, L-A-F-F. And it was just loads of different laughs that you could use if you weren't recording in front of a live audience. We're still not going to use them.
And without wishing to blow my own trumpet, because I was only one of a team of contributors, but I had a radio show in the late 90s, and we were so funny that the people at BBC Comedy said we can use those laughs on nearly every other programme we make.
And sell them on. Sell them on.
Fill
You've
them in.
been feeding off that laughter bank.
That was the best compliment I ever had in my whole career. We've kept your laughs, and we're using them on other shows.
There's real joy in those laughs. That'll save a load of programmes.
I think most of them were for Kevin Eldon.
It's like, thank God.
But this guy, Charlie Douglas, he monopolised the Hollywood laugh track market, and apparently there was a limited number of laughs, and you could recognise them. They came up repeatedly, the same laughs, over and over again. Some people don't like it, but the research suggests it works in principle. The UCL's Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience, they exposed people to a list of deliberately weak dad jokes. So they ran the jokes with no laugh at all. They ran them with a recording of being told to laugh at nothing in particular, so a fake laugh, and then with another recording of people who were genuinely laughing, so a real laugh, and the ones with the real laughs rated higher than the fake ones, and even the fake ones rated higher than the no laugh. So we're going to have an experiment now. So I'm going to tell you the actual joke that the researchers used, and we'll try it with and without a laugh track. Okay? So, what do you call a sleeping dinosaur?
I don't know.
A dino snore. Wow. OK.
I think it might have been the delivery, actually.
Do you think it was my fault?
Yeah.
OK,
We should have got a professional comedian.
I should have. If only I could have found somebody who can tell a joke.
Also, it's not fair. It's not fair to do it in front of comedians, because I don't know about you, but I'm just so hardened to watching comedians say jokes. So someone could do the best joke in the world, and I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
so
a really
funny.
good joke.
No, I've lost all sense of joy in comedy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so have most of my fans.
Yes.
But that would be a great way of testing comic
Yeah.
delivery, because there's virtually no humour
In
in
that
the
joke.
joke.
No.
Yet it is a joke.
Yes.
People know where they're supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
You've got a terrible joke, though.
Well, I do have this is a joke I tell sometimes before radio recordings. I didn't even think of it, and the amount of thought that goes into it is so small that it is not mine. The joke is, what's a ghost's favourite country?
What is a ghost's favourite country?
France. Did better than Dino snore.
That did
didn't it?
way better than Dino
Yeah, but
snore.
I think that was a pity laugh.
Yeah.
No.
OK.
I mean, take what you can get.
I think I was more laughing at David's pure commitment to the
I think that's it.
punchline.
It's the way he tells
You sort
them.
of delivered yours like, I know this is bad, but it's for the experiment. Yours was, this can work. I'm willing it to work.
OK, let's try my joke with a laugh track.
OK.
See if that goes better. What do you call a sleeping dinosaur?
I don't know.
A dino snore.
Much better.
I feel like we're an American sitcom.
Yeah.
David, let's try your joke with a laugh track. OK, go ahead.
What's a ghost's favourite country?
I don't know.
People just love the whole vibe of it. It's like the best of Ronnie Corbett. You get laughs on the way to
This is what I'm talking about. Women are not as funny as men.
We did have a complaint last year from a viewer about canned laughter, which we do not use, as you can hear, and there wasn't any, and we investigated the confusion about why this woman was so upset, and it turned out she didn't like the sound of Jimmy Carr's laugh.
Really?
I know.
It was his girlfriend.
In Argentina, they have teams of professional laughers, redores, who are employed to go to television recordings and laugh.
That's quite common, though, isn't it? That's an old tradition.
What to have?
Theatrical tradition. They used to call it a claque, which is a French word. So if you opened a play or an opera or something, there'd be people scattered around who would encourage people to know when to laugh or when to cry or, you know.
Cry?
Yeah, because
like an
if you don't
acting job.
understand the opera, you don't know when it's getting sad. So if people are around you going, oh, things like that. I'd be good at it. I'd do that on ferries. Oh, no. We're too close.
Apparently...
To the tanker, we're too close.
It's so vital, because otherwise ferry journeys can be boring.
Yes,
Really
dull.
boring. Last time I was on a ferry, I was 45 minutes queuing with a tray for the worst meal of my life. And if someone had been causing a panic because we were too near a tanker,
or
would have
just
gone
been
much
going,
more quickly.
Such a long wait and yet so disgusting.
People who'd eaten could be going, don't bother!
Was it the
Look out the window!
And then
The Isle of Wight is 10 minutes away. Just wait.
Are you OK?
I'm now thinking back to every show I've seen, though, where people have cried in it and wondered if they were...
Where they moved.
Yeah, you know those, like, Edinburgh shows where they're funny, but about 40 minutes in, there's a really hard-hitting moment, and people...
I hate those.
I went to go and see one, and everyone around me was crying. And now I think, were they a plant? Were they the equivalent of canned laughter?
No, because you don't need it, because people are very suggestible. And let's be honest, there isn't canned laughter used in British television, and it sometimes gets accused of it, and it's very, very annoying to those of us who feel that we've elicited a genuine laugh. But the truth is, we've elicited a genuine laugh from people who've come along excited, it was free, and they want to be helpful.
Yeah.
So they know they're supposed to laugh.
It's British manners.
People are nice,
True.
so they
Student
sort of
audiences
go, well,
are
that
very
was
rarely ill-tempered.
Yeah, exactly. That was clearly meant to amuse me. I'm not going to sit around working out whether it actually did. I'm going to make the required noise, and that's what they reliably do. And God bless them.
There is an interesting thing, though. There's a guy who's the world's leading expert on laughter, which is a sort of interesting job, a guy called Robert Provine. And he found that we are 30 times more likely to laugh when we're in company than we are on our own.
Oh, that's definitely true. I can watch, like, films or TV shows that I find genuinely hilarious, but if I'm on my own, like, nothing will come out.
Also, that inverse is true, because you are probably 30 times more likely to cry on your own than you are in company.
Yes, that is true.
I made myself laugh so hard the other day.
Did you, Hope?
Yeah, because I did a fart and it sounded like
brilliant.
it sounded like somebody was calling out my name as though they were dying, like Holly, like that. It was the funniest fart I've ever done in my life.
I once did a poo that made me cry.
Maisie,
I
I'm
really
so sorry.
cried for ages.
Maisie's new to the show.
Feel free to join in, Maisie. Have you ever pooed and cried at the same time? Who hasn't?
But I feel like when I know, I'll know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll look
Yeah,
forward
you will.
to it.
It's like love.
I'll text you all when it happens.
You might cry out as well.
Yeah.
Help me!
I'll just hear canned laughter over it as well.
I think farts are funny, but I don't find my own funny. And I don't know if that's a failure as a comedian.
No, it's just a failure of timing, David. It's a failure of timing.
Sorry?
It's a failure of time.
Failure
Very
of
good.
Extra point to David.
Failure of timing.
Yeah.
I don't find my farts funny because I don't fart.
What? That's not true.
There's almost a continual release of gas. It's not what you would call a fart.
It's a weird...
It's an emission, a constant emission.
I don't fart, and I think it's a worry.
I think that is a worry.
Yes. I don't let gas out.
Are you able to dive to the bottom of a swimming pool, or are you just constantly floating?
No, I think what's going to happen is that one day something will ping like that and I'll just float round backwards out.
Yeah.
Oh, one day you're going to fart. Oh, my God. I hope it's not in isolation.
You know what? If you're going to go, what a way to go.
I know, just go flying back around the room. Laughter...
You return to Denmark like a salmon. Where did she land? Denmark, of course.
I think anyway, salmon would go to Norway. That doesn't matter. A sleeping dinosaur is a dino snore, and anyone who finds that funny must be having a laugh. Oh, I like the applause. The applause is good. That was nice. Here's a riddle-iculous question. Why is a raven like a writing desk?
That's a quote, isn't it?
It is from what?
I think it sounds sort of Lewis Carroll or something.
It is Lewis Carroll-y. So where are we going? Lewis Carroll?
Narnia.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Narnia. Who did Narnia?
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, I always get them two mixed up as well. Yeah.
And Lewis Collins, I get mixed up.
Lewis.
Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah.
Narnia, and The
Lewis.
Professionals.
And The Professionals. Are those your three cultural go-to?
Well, I think if I was to self-isolate for 3 months,
Say.
that wouldn't be a bad start.
So it's a question that the Mad Hatter poses in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Why is a raven like a writing desk? And it wasn't originally meant to have an answer. And then, in a later edition, Carroll included this note. I may as well put on record here what seems to me to be a fairly appropriate answer, because it can produce a few notes, though they are very flat, and it is never put with the wrong end front. So what happened was, it was supposed to be an internal joke, because look at the way he spelt never. He spelt it like that, which is backwards is...
Raven.
Yes.
Raven. But the publishers incorrectly corrected the spelling, so the joke was completely missed. And, in fact, nobody noticed the error until 1976. But it's a meta-riddle. It doesn't mean anything.
I mean, is that really a riddle? It's just a stupid thing
You just
to
find it
say.
annoying.
Yeah, it's just, like, too smart art.
There was a very popular one in the 1890s, when is a mouse if it spins? To which the answer was, because the higher it gets, the fewer. I mean, they're just ridiculous. They don't really particularly...
This is the sort of humour that develops in non-studio audience conditions.
Yes.
One time, Lewis Collins and Martin Shaw were on a stakeout in a hotel room, and you could hear the Professionals theme being played very, very slowly on a heavy brass instrument, I think possibly a tuba. So it was going... And then Martin Shaw went to the window to look out like that. And if there'd been a man there with a tuba, would have been the funniest thing that had ever happened on ITV. And I know that's not a high bar. But as it was, they didn't even cut to the outside. So we never knew if there was someone with a tuba. And judging by his reaction, I'd say there wasn't.
That would have been a great joke.
Would have been a great joke. Especially if Lewis Collins had said, I hate the tuba.
Yeah, or something.
And then had a cigarette.
Tonally, would it have been right for the Professionals?
Oh,
That's
no.
the question.
No, no.
It'd be great
Earlier
if-
on, he'd been in a Capri and on a date with a young woman, and they'd got a call to say there's urgent terrorism, and he just dropped her off at a bus stop. He didn't even run her home.
When it's your next big birthday, I think we should all club together and film you playing a tuba and cut it in.
Yeah.
And then whenever it goes out on gold or whatever, everyone will be like, what?
It could totally supersede the original cut of that episode.
I know.
Yeah.
Right? Like with Blade Runner, it's impossible to get the non-director's cut.
Yeah.
The version without Alan Davis playing a tuba 40 years later.
It's no longer a...
Yeah.
It'll make people furious.
Yeah.
And in fact, they'll want to see where's the guy with the tuba. He should crop up in every episode.
That's
And
like
there
people
will
go-
be an opportunity.
It's like Where's Wally, but in 70s TV shows. There's always a interstitial with...
I don't think you need a tuba. You can just make that funny noise. Yeah. Most famous riddle of all must be the riddle of the Sphinx, which is in Oedipus Rex. Does anybody know what the riddle is?
No, I can't remember.
Is
And
it
it's in
something
Peer
about
Gynt as well.
what walks on 4 legs in the morning? Is that right?
What has 4 legs in the
yeah.
morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? To which Richard Osman has suggested a poorly organised darts match. But you needed to get it right, because the Sphinx would strangle and eat anybody who couldn't answer it correctly. So there's some pressure, I think.
Yes.
What if you were like, I don't care.
He'd just eat you.
Fine.
Yeah.
What is it then?
Man who crawls on all fours as a baby, then walks on 2 feet as an adult, and then uses a walking stick in old age.
No.
There's always, like, more than one answer, though, to every riddle, isn't there? Like, the one that goes, I'm tall when young and I'm short when I'm old. What am I?
Yeah. What?
Well, it's a candle. But it could also be, like, my Auntie Sue.
You're right.
Like-
And also, what happens is you get the answer and you think, I can't believe
Exactly.
I paid attention for
No.
that long because I don't care.
It gets really in your head, and then the payoff is so very little.
You really need the extra not being eaten by the Sphinx.
Yeah. The pressure.
Worth
Yeah, you
bothering.
need the
Yeah.
stake.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to be pressured into thinking, I'm going to shit myself if I don't get this right.
Yes.
Or like-
So you'd be fine because you don't pass wind.
No, nothing at all.
You'd be fine. You could just go.
Well, I mean, that's a riddle
Sorry,
in itself,
Sphinx.
isn't it?
and tuber your way off.
Never not funny. Sandy?
And now for a really risible question. Who was doing the best stand-up 500 years ago?
Was it you?
Well, Ken Dodd must be on your klaxon, surely.
I sat next to Ken Dodd at the most glorious dinner one time. We were together for about 4 hours. He didn't stop. He'd just done a show and he just carried on.
Yeah.
It was astonishing.
We saw him like 2 months before he died or something, and it was about 3 hours after the time it was meant to. It was about 1 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, people
at Wimbledon
frequently
Theatre.
coach loads of pensioners with the driver saying, I've got to drive you back to the hotel.
I need to go now.
But we haven't seen the Diddy Men.
It was one of the best evenings of my life.
Was it endearing or was it quite irritating?
Well, I had Julian Fellows on the other side, so it was terribly endearing. Not caring.
What is this dinner?
Honestly,
It's a dream.
yeah.
It was the Illuminati.
I was on the other side of the table with
annual
Martin
summit.
Shaw and Lewis Collins.
The best stand-up 500 years ago.
1500s.
So we are talking 16th century.
Luther. Martin
Luther.
Luther.
Well, German priests.
German priest.
So we're in the right...
Like Henry VIII's time, is it?
Yeah, Henry VIII.
Because
Yes.
Germany went a bit crazy in the early 16th.
Well-
I'm not the craziest it's ever gone.
No.
But,
I mean, they've got form.
yeah, but relatively, because there were huge, horrible wars and fighting between the various Protestant and Catholic bits, weren't there?
There were. But this is a proper thing called risus paschalis, so the Easter laugh. And the idea was to put jokes into the Easter sermons. It supposedly reflected a perception that the resurrection was a practical joke played on the devil.
He's not going down well.
So look at him. He's fantastic, isn't it?
We've all had an audience like that. He's going, stop!
So the sort of shtick that they would do from the pulpit, there was a preacher who ate pancakes while doing cuckoo impressions.
Oh, brilliant.
There was one who lay in cow dung and pretended to give birth to a calf while hissing like a goose.
Oh, that's a bit try-hard, isn't
I know, really.
Yeah.
And one church where the priest got a layman to dress in a hood and convinced him he was a priest, which I think that's not as good.
Yeah.
But there were loads of lewd jokes about nuns. There was general bad language and lots of serious-minded churchmen at the time, people like Erasmus. They thought it was a dreadful thing. Erasmus denounced the sermons so full of obscenities that a decent man could not tell them at a dinner party without shame. So this practice of risus paschalis was
Where
banned.
did Jesus stand on obscenities? Is there a view expressed in the Gospels about obscenities?
Well, he must be a bit annoyed his name is used
As an obscenity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if everyone was like, oh, Alan Davis off.
Yeah.
Alan Davis.
But no one says Jesus.
Jesus off.
It counts as taking the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
Jesus.
People go, oh,
Jesus
Christ. If someone went, oh, Davis. I wouldn't go, well, I've never been so
Jesus off.
insulted in
We
my-
need to start that being a thing.
Yeah.
Just Jesus.
Oh,
Just,
Jesus
is that where
off.
you tell someone to go away but come back 3 days later?
Yeah.
But
it's
was
gonna
he
be a thing.
easily offended?
Who, Jesus?
No, he was pretty...
He's pretty cool. He
Because
made
the
all that...
Anglican Church is so easily offended.
I don't think they are.
No,
I
Well-
mean, my mum's a vicar. I don't think they are.
she's not easily offended.
No.
Is
She
that
watches
true?
this.
Is your mum a vicar?
Yeah, my mum's a vicar, yeah.
The elves have just given me a quote from Matthew 5:34, but I tell you not to swear at all.
Didn't like the
there are
F
lots
words. No
of-
F words in the Bible, are there? No F words or C words.
Is your mother an Anglican priest?
Yeah, C of E. That's Anglican, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you've really paid attention while you were growing up. That's...
I get muddled up between all the different denominations and sort of...
But it's good to know which one your mother is, I just
Well,
say.
she's Church of England, so I suppose, yes, that's Anglican. In answer to your question, yes, my mother is Anglican.
I suppose in a way it is, yes. Yes.
OK. There are lots of excellent, hilarious Anglican priests who were in the Church of England. I'm trying to help you here. There was a guy called the Reverend Robert Hawker. He was a Cornish Anglican priest. He particularly... I mean, look at him.
You can tell by the pasty on his head.
Isn't he great? He liked to moonlight as a mermaid. So for several months, he dressed in a seaweed wig and he sat every evening on a rock in Bude Harbour singing mermaid songs.
Yeah, but he's obviously stark raving mad and needed help.
No, I'd be in church every week if that was my...
Would you, though?
Yeah.
That's not where he's doing it in church. In church, he's doing the normal stuff, you know.
He was not doing the normal stuff in church. So he first of all, he did this mermaid singing. He was naked apart from a cloth. A waterproof cloth wrapped around him for his tail.
I'm out. You like Dragon's Den? I'm out.
And then apparently there was a local farmer who was so irritated by the singing that he threatened him with a shotgun. So he concluded his time as a mermaid by doing one rousing rendition of God Save the King and then swam home. But in the church, his 10 cats made up most of the congregation at his church services, and he saw one of them catching a mouse on a Sunday, so he excommunicated the cat. It's marvellous.
Oh, my God.
And then I like this one very much. Reverend Edward Drax Free, he was the rector at Sutton in Bedfordshire. He impregnated a succession of housemaids. I mean, he was very busy. He was perpetually drunk.
Good God.
He did?
Yeah. He stole the lead off his own church roof.
Has he got the biggest head in Christendom, or have they got tiny heads?
It's not pleasant, is it? He was fantastic. He kept the church locked because he didn't want anybody to try and attend a service. Anyway, in 1830, a party was sent by the local bishop to remove him, and they found he'd barricaded himself into the rectory together with his favourite serving girl and 2 pistols. And they tried to lay siege on him. He held out for 2 weeks until his claret ran out.
Oh, my God.
And he gave
I'm
himself...
surprised the claret lasted 2 weeks for the look of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, sad story. He died penniless.
Oh, no shit.
It was all going so
Couldn't
well.
get a job after that.
He died in 1843. It's a sort of lovely detail from history. He was run over by a varnish maker's cart.
Of course he was going to go in a weird way, wasn't he? He was not going to go quiet.
What's improved by extra rhubarb?
Extra custard?
Using rhubarb in a different sense.
Well, rhubarb as in the noise
As
people
in
make
waffle.
to sound like a crowd is talking.
You get an extra point. That is
yeah,
exactly
rhubarb,
right.
rhubarb.
It's actors' jargon for the chat that extras do in the background. Does anybody know why the rhubarb thing started?
Rhubarb.
Good sort of noise that sounds like talking.
I think so. I mean...
More talking-y word than other words.
Sorry, so is it do they do it so that it sounds for a sound thing, or is it that your mouth
is moving?
When they were doing Japanese prisoner of war films after the war, they were all shot in the UK. They got anyone in who looked remotely Asian because they just needed to fill the background with extras who might be in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And obviously these people were from many different countries and nobody spoke Japanese, so they just got them to say, I tie your shoe, you tie my shoe. So
I knew a comedian from Dublin, and he taught me how to do a Northern Irish accent, and you just say "bor for war."
Bordy fordy.
a good way to say Spice Girls in Glaswegian.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Is to say Space Ghetto.
In an American accent.
In an American accent.
Right, Space Ghetto.
Space Ghetto.
Space Ghetto. Oh, yeah.
Good, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that is good.
Blows your mind.
That blows your mind. Extras are not highly paid individuals, but if you have a large crowd, that's obviously extremely expensive. So lots of films use something else now. What do you think they use instead of hiring extras for? If you've got a massive crowd scene.
Computer graphic people.
No, it's inflatable dolls.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like what you get on a hen party?
No, there they are. Look, this is the film Seabiscuit. This is you know, the one about the horse race.
I'm not a sex doll, I'm an extra.
So genuinely, that's easier. Blowing up a load of sex dolls is easier than computers.
You can get a crowd of 10,000
Yeah.
in a truck, and they can be reused.
I mean, I'm sure they've got pumps.
Yeah, I don't think it's somebody going...
But still.
Mind you, if you were an extra and you could send an inflatable version of yourself, you'd be foolish not to.
I think I've been on panel shows where I might as well have.
Sorry, we're supposed to just go, no, no.
Not this one.
There are lots of films that it's been used in. I think The King's Speech was another one.
I thought they always CGI'd them nowadays.
Very expensive.
I thought it was sort of just like copy and paste.
I thought they used crowds from Alan Davis's show in the 90s.
Yeah.
They just used them as cutaways for Gladiator.
If it was my film, they'd just copy and paste Hazel,
Hazel
over and over in the background.
So, from the height of ridiculousness to the ridiculousness of height, how will short people save the world?
Is it by going on a baking show and becoming a national treasure?
Ah, extra point.
There we go. We got it.
Eating less.
Yes, it is sort of...
Breathing less?
It is, yes, it's to do with all of those.
Breathing less, did you say?
Yeah.
It's got to be better, basically, overall, because broadly speaking, a short person functions like a medium-height person or a tall person and takes less fuel and uses up less space.
That is
Yes.
exactly right.
They'll be the heroes of the moment with the stockpiling.
Yeah.
They're not going for the top shelves. They can't get there.
No, exactly.
If we all die out, it's my lot's fault.
Yeah. Are you very tall?
Yeah.
So there's a theory called reventropy, which is that humans ought to be shorter. There's a guy called Thomas Samaras. In 1994, he wrote a book called The Truth About Your Height, and he argued that people were getting taller because they had excessive protein in their diet, and this was leading to much greater consumption of everything. So you needed more land for farming, you get more waste, you get more pollution, and in order to preserve resources, really, you need to control the size of human beings, and that being shorter is good for you because it's... Look at that, that's me and Richard Osman. Being short is good for you, it slows ageing. Shorter people do have longer lifespans.
Really?
Yeah. So
You hit your head a lot less, though, probably.
That's true. I've never hit my head on a doorway, not once.
But you've probably caught the corner of a table a few times.
and the lid on a toilet.
Yes. Anyway, this idea of reventropy, as in reversing entropy, it seems to be that his means of restoring order in the world specifically was by making people smaller.
Not working, because all of my nephews and nieces are all massive.
Yeah.
I think we were shorter because we only had biscuits for tea.
People got shorter when we started to farm, didn't we?
Oh, really?
And live in cities, because we were basically healthier and taller when we were hunter-gatherers, and then when we started to, you know, as it civilise, as in city dwell and farm and all that, our population numbers were able to expand, but our basic level of nutrition went down and we became shorter people.
But it's gone up again.
And we've got gradually taller and taller as the nutritional...
It's the demand of
Malnutrition is the key. We malnourish a generation, they'll shorten right up.
Macy, how tall are you?
5'11".
Do you have, like, strict rules about people you go out with or marry or whatever who is taller or shorter than you? Because my tall girl friends all refuse to go out with somebody who's shorter than me.
I think shorter men can be really, like, attractive, but I would just feel cumbersome, I reckon. My boyfriend is 6 foot.
And was that a deal breaker, as it were? You had to... You know.
I'd love to say no, but it absolutely was.
I like the shallowness of it.
I'm really shallow.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I think
Very tall, very shallow.
Yeah, I think that's marvellous.
I'm like a candle.
Yeah, yeah. There was another lonely voice campaigning against something the rest of us take for granted. There's a man called Roger Babson. He was an American stock market guru. He was the guy in the Q series that invented little hammers so that typists could wear mittens and work outside.
He what?
Yeah, he was obsessed with fresh air, and he got his secretaries to work outside on typewriters, and their hands were too cold, so he invented a series of little hammers so they could wear mittens while typing. Do you think that's crazy? His real passion was that he campaigned against gravity.
Oh, wow.
So he had a couple of very disturbing events. His sister and then later his grandson died from drowning, and he devoted his considerable fortune to fighting against the evil old man gravity, which he argued killed millions of people every year. And he paid 3 investigators to sit permanently in the US Patent Office, scanning incoming applications for anti-gravity inventions, anything, costumes, shields, whatever it might be, so that could be used to insulate people from gravity, because he hoped one day to eliminate airplane accidents.
There was drownings in his family, and he blamed gravity, not water.
No, he didn't have an anti-water thing.
Yeah.
In fact, he set up the
Gravity that pulls you under, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the water's trying to help them.
If there was no gravity, you'd float. And also the water would be
If there
in
was
the air.
gravity, the water would be in the air.
Yeah.
So he started something called the Gravity Research Foundation, and the idea was to give out grants to universities. But it had to be used specifically for anti-gravity research, and lots of people didn't know how to do this, so the money didn't get used. Tufts University used it to set up their Institute of Cosmology, and what they do is they acknowledge this grant from the Gravity Research Foundation every year in a ceremony in which the doctorate graduates have an apple dropped on their head in front of a monument to Babson. I mean, he wasn't completely crazy. In a way, he was also a good guy. He set up the very first women's business school in the United States. But I like these campaigns that you just think, wow, is that a thing? There was a campaign in the United States called SINA, S-I-N-A, and it was the Society for Indecency to Naked Animals. It was founded in 1959 with the slogan, "A nude horse is a rude horse." And it campaigned for clothing of any animal that stands higher than 4 inches or is longer than 6 inches. There were campaigns right across the United States.
So the tiny little needy animals.
Yeah.
You can have a nude hamster, but not a
No.
Dachshund should be dressed, just.
It went on for 4 years, this campaign, and then Time magazine found out it was a hoax perpetrated by a comedian called Alan Abel. But I think I'd have joined in, I think.
It's true that the penises of horses and dogs are very prominent in society. You see them more than you see the penises of humans.
That is true.
In general life, you walk around, you don't see many penises.
No, and I'm fine with that.
If you see one, it's likely to be a dog's penis.
Yeah, that's true.
Or it could be a horse's penis. There'll be so many more horses in the Edwardian era.
Yeah.
The penises would go past, like, scooters. On Oxford Street. You imagine it, 1910, penis, 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 penis. And this is the Victorian age, not long ended, which was very, very anti-penis, as we know. And yet, all these horses' penises, all the time, everywhere.
Well, it's
logical. Let's get some pants on those horses.
Just pants, not clothes.
I think just pants.
Start with the pants.
G-string.
If you ignore a penis, it will go away.
That's certainly been my experience. Now, short people are just better. Fact. Why can't a robot work out how to tick a box marked "I'm not a robot"?
That's a very good question. Oh, also, why can't it tell what a traffic light looks like?
I don't know. I'm not a robot. I don't think I'm a robot. But I find friendly text messages stressful.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of the signs of a robot.
So it doesn't make any sense. The elves quote a letters page of Viz. Surely robots can figure out how to tick a box on a website saying, "I am not a robot. I've seen Terminator 2, and that one could fly a fucking helicopter." So, ticking the box is not the point. It's how you behaved before you ticked the box that is analysed. So, to be honest, I can't tell you all the details because they keep it secret because they don't want people trying to cheat the test. But broadly speaking, you tick the box and it prompts the website to check your browsing history. So let us say, for example, just before you tick the box, you watched a couple of cat videos, you, I don't know, liked a tweet about Greta Thunberg, you checked your Gmail account before you got down to work. All of that makes them think that you must be a human, and checking the box can even spur it to analyse the way in which you moved your mouse across the screen. No. It's slightly spooky, I think. Essentially, when you are clicking "I am not a robot," you are instructing the site to have a look at your data and decide for itself. If the machine is not sure, that's when it directs you to click on, I don't know, pictures of fire hydrants, aren't there, and sort of secondary
So if that comes up, it means that your browsing history...
It's slightly worrying.
It looks like you're a robot.
So if you
like you're in a Russian warehouse.
Yeah. If you regularly clear your browsing history or you browse in incognito mode, then it will...
Why would you do that?
That is not the sign of a robot, that's the sign of a wanker.
But it's a bit weird, isn't it? It's an automated humanity check. It's called CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA, and it stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Tests to Tell Computers and Humans Apart. But you can do some good with it. You know those distorted letters that you sometimes have to say, what is that word? It's quite a good way to digitise old books, OK? So if you've got an old or torn piece of paper from an old book and you're not entirely sure what the word is, sometimes with CAPTCHA they'll give you 2 words to solve. You get one after the other. One test is to establish whether you're human, and the other word, they're just looking for your opinion. So if 1,000 people say that the word is catacomb, then the chances are it is catacomb. So it's a way of analysing text.
They can't fold towels very easily, though, can they?
No, that is the major flaw in robots.
Yeah.
Now, for a ridiculous loser, what can we say about Mr. Irrelevant 1991? It's a sought-after title in some ways. Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant.
Is there some sort of like a paradox? It's like being the most boring person. Well, that's something interesting if you're the most boring person. So the second most boring person is more boring than the most boring person, which makes them the most boring person, which is something interesting about them. Which makes
I love that. I think that's fantastic. All I can say with confidence is that he was wanky. Which is his name, Mr. Wanky.
Mr. Wanky?
Yeah, Mr. Wanky.
Well, that's so relevant.
Yeah, so every year in US football, professional teams choose new players from that year's college leavers, so it's called the draft. And the last placed team from the previous year gets the first choice. The idea is to even out the team's prospects. And so it's not like you can just buy the top players. They try and keep it kind of level.
The opposite of the Premier League, really.
Yeah, so the player chosen last from the pool, so the least sought-after player in that year is called Mr. Irrelevant. And it's a rather dubious honour. It fell to Larry Wanky in 1991.
I was really hoping he had a better first name, but
Yeah,
Larry Wanky
is not good, is it?
What would a better first name be?
Willie.
Barry.
Willie is better.
Willie
Wanky.
Wee Welly.
But they get a
Wee
prize.
Wanky.
They get flown out for a relevant week with their family to California, and they have, you know.
Introducing the Wankies.
I
Let's
think
have
it's
a
rather-
warm round of applause for the Wankies as they join us.
But it's a thing in sport. The last place competitor in the Tour de France, for example, since 1920, been awarded the Lanterne Rouge. But there's so much publicity with being that person that people want to be it. When they know they're not going to win, and they know they're right at the back, they sometimes hide in barns and things.
When I've watched the London Marathon, there's so much attention on who wins it, but I am interested often as to who is the last person.
Yeah, like 5 days later.
Yeah.
And a man in an iron lung finally rolls over the finish line.
But there's loads of wonderful things that you get a salted anchovy if you're the loser of the Siena Palio horse race. And it used to be that you got a wooden spoon at Cambridge if you got the worst honours degree in the maths tripos.
No.
This is the last one ever awarded to the magnificently named Cuthbert Lempriere Holthouse.
Who then went on to become Prime Minister.
He became an Anglican vicar, which is like being in the Church of England.
And so what he got the worst score on his degree.
He got the worst degree. In fact, they made the spoon out of a rowing oar because he blamed it on the fact that he spent so much time rowing.
It's amazing that they actually gave degrees to borrowers.
Well, also nobody is going to ask a question about who came first in the maths tripos, right? It's just so lovely. I think it's much more interesting to talk about Cuthbert.
Yeah.
And now for the bit where our panel accidentally fall into a lens grinder and make spectacles of themselves. General ignorance, fingers on buzzers, please. Watch this. Have a look at the screen. That text has got the entire answer to the question. Can anybody pick out any of it? OK, it's going at 1,500 words per minute. What do you call someone who is able to read at that speed?
Fast.
My mother-in-law.
Fast is good, yes. Is your mother-in-law very fast?
She goes on holiday. She literally can read a book a day.
Can she understand it?
Yeah, she's incredible. It's insane how good she is at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can, in principle, train yourself to read pretty quickly. But speed reading, that they used to talk about, it was a thing that people thought you could be taught. In fact, there was an American proponent, Evelyn Wood. She was an educator from Utah, and she made a fortune these reading dynamic workshops. She said you could increase the speed of reading 3 times, maybe as much as 10 times. And she had hundreds of outlets across the United States in the 1950s and 60s. And it was partly because JFK had a reputation for being able to read 1,200 words per minute. Nixon and Carter, both presidents, both endorsed it.
1,200 words a minute?
Well, there are various techniques.
It's 4 pages of a novel.
It's slightly mad. One of the techniques is reading down the middle of the page rather than...
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder as a writer why you bothered with the words at the side. The other thing is to eliminate sub-vocalisations in your head. Reading aloud will slow you down.
I think I'm quite a slow reader because I worry I've missed a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm forever going back and doing a paragraph again. And
But you're worrying about the comprehension, and that is the thing about speed reading, is that probably people are reading quite quickly, but they're not really fully taking in all the detail. But the technique now of speed reading has been pretty much debunked. It is not a thing.
What did it say, that fast-moving thing?
Everything I just told you.
So your all of that was just...
Yeah,
wow.
everything I've just told you. But basically, people get to the gist but not the nuance if they're speed reading.
so they sort of go, well, there's something about tigers in that paragraph.
Yeah.
This one's all about cheese.
Exactly, I've got it. Tigers and cheese, I've got it.
Love that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm afraid speed readers are missing the point. Who made the most expensive and best-sounding violins ever?
Stradivarius.
That's my boy. Took one for the team.
Yeah, what a guy.
Marks and Spencer's.
Yamaha.
Sports Direct.
It was a guy called Bartolomeo Guarneri. He was the grandson of one of Stradivari's apprentices. So Stradivarius did make beautiful violins, but this guy has the edge. In 2010, one of his went for more than $18 million. This $18 million violin is on loan to a brilliant woman called Anne Akiko Mayers. I think we have a little tiny bit of her playing.
That sounds like a normal violin to me.
Well, so that is the thing about it, because they did a test to see whether people wanted to buy one of those very expensive ones or whether they wanted a modern one. They got 21 professional violinists to play in a dimly lit room wearing goggles, and only 38%, so 8 out of the 21, chose to take the old ones, and the rest chose the modern instruments. So not necessarily... Actually, does it sound any better?
That's like those taste tests when people think they're drinking some incredibly expensive wine, but it's just from Aldi.
Yeah. In 2016, a violin made from Winston Churchill's cigar box was sold for $6,500.
No.
Didn't have any strings, but yeah, probably
God.
smelled nice. And finally, a ludicrously easy one. What the Dickens was the first name of the famous English writer who gave us the expression, what the Dickens? Yes!
William.
Yes! You're absolutely correct.
Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare, indeed. Do you know what play?
Is it Merry Wives of Windsor?
It is indeed Merry Wives of Windsor.
How did you know that?
He is William Shakespeare.
Do you like this picture?
That's me from the recently closed show.
Yes, so Merry Wives of Windsor, Mrs. Page is referring to Falstaff. She's on the cusp of stuffing him in a laundry basket. Where had you this pretty weathercock, says Ford. Mrs. Page says, I cannot tell what the Dickens his name is. Do you know why, Dickens?
No, I don't.
It's a diminutive of Dick. It's a euphemism for the devil. So what the Dickens just means what the devil. It hurts like the Dickens, we used to say.
Yeah.
It was an old expression, so it hurts like the devil. There was a sort of tradition in medieval plays that if you spoke the devil's name, then he would appear. So that's where we get the expression "speak of the devil."
Really?
So, yeah. There's just so many fantastic words that Shakespeare invented. Merry Wives actually get the first appearances of hot-blooded, the world's my oyster, that phrase.
That's Shakespearean.
It is Shakespearean, yeah, absolutely.
oyster.
So it was not Charles Dickens. People might think, what the Dickens? It was Mr. Shakespeare.
He was the first to come up with SCART lead.
Yes, that is correct. Enough Dickensing about. It's time to reveal this week's scores. In last place, it's a noble thing, with -7. It's Maisie. In third place with -6, it's Alan. In second place with -3, David. I know, with 1 whole point.
What?
Ridiculous number of points. It's Holly! It only remains for me to laugh in the faces of Maisie, David, Holly and Alan and thank them all for their good humour. And I leave you with these words from Dostoevsky. There is no idea and no fact that could not be vulgarised or shown in a ridiculous light. And that pretty much explains QI's existence. Good night. The show you've just seen was recorded without an audience because of social distancing rules. Next week, we're back to normal. So see you then. And in the meantime, mind how you go.